Welcome back to Life, Love, and Real Estate. I am your host, Daniel Palmer. I am joined, as always, by my much better pod half, LaCruz Amaro, and we are here to once again delve you into the world of real estate through the lens of the interconnectedness of all of our lives. Before we get into this week's episode, do me a huge favor. Whatever avenue you're ingesting this good podcast on, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more drops that we do. Make sure you're on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts for free 99. Make sure you subscribe so you can share it with everyone you know to get their advice moving into the world of real estate. LaCressa, what's going on? How are you doing?
Hi. Episode 7. This is exciting. Like we're really kind of like getting into a groove, I think. And folks are starting to listen and friends are like, oh, I heard this and I heard that. So that's super exciting. I'm good. It's life is life and nothing bad. It's just, it's amazing how you pray and you ask for things and then it comes a little bit faster than you expected. And you're like, holy crap, like, okay. And so it's like excitement and nervousness and a little bit of tears because you're like, I got to prepare for this now. Like I said, this is what I wanted. Now I got to do it, or at least, try to do it. And even if I don't, shoot my shot. So it's been an interesting couple of days of meeting and reconnecting with different agents and things like that who are doing things that I have done or have always wanted to do, but they're doing it on a expanded level and they have a lot more confidence and they're just doing it. And so that's nice to be around. And also I got to get a little bit more audacity in these bones to get out there and do some things that I've been thinking about. So that's where my head is. The long introduction. That's where my head is right now.
I love talking to you because you remind me that it is so important to always keep pushing yourself. Like the fact that you were just saying that, like, you were in this room with people who are doing things that you've always wanted to do, and you felt yourself say, okay, you need to, all right, tighten up a little bit. It's what you asked for. Let's go get it.
Yeah.
I like that little pep talk. That's really cool. What feedback are you? Go ahead. Sorry.
No. It's interesting because I was talking to a friend and a colleague. We've done a lot of business together on opposite sides of the table. But, I've been a trusted person to her to talk about her business and expanding her business and relationships within real estate. And she's like, I'm going to give you back your advice. I was like, okay. And so, when it hits full circle, when you're out there and you're like, oh, this is wonderful. So the advice is helpful to people and to see them putting it into action. And then when you start being vulnerable and talking about your fears and your hesitations and your lack of planning and all of those different things. And it's like, I'm going to tell you what you've been telling me. And I was like, I hear you. I hear you. And I hear you. I hear you from up there and I hear you right in front of me. So I needed that little bit of a shakeup. And then now I'm just trying to get myself out of it. I saw this interesting video. I'm always sending out like you guys little Instagram things and like inspirational stuff and funny stuff. But this one talked about how when it comes to life, like you're supposed to flow like waves in an ocean, right? Things go up and things go down and things crest out and they might get stagnant for a bit, but know that there's going to be movement again. And I feel that I have been in ebb and flow, and I've just been kind of building myself up over the winter and the earlier part of this first quarter. And now the wave is about to rise, and now I have to start getting myself back in gear. So, this is learning how to go with the flow and go with the tides.
That's one of the things I love about our business is that it is always changing. It's always challenging you in different ways. It's always pushing you to grow. There's no standing still. There's no stagnation. It's always going to be something else. And so I think that that's really cool that you've kind of recognized that and embraced that and have accepted the challenge. What feedback are you getting on the podcast? I didn't know people were talking about. People were listening. Oh my goodness! Thanks. I thought it was just my mom and dad. Yeah. Okay.
I've heard that it's entertaining, and that it's easy to listen to us. So that's always a lovely compliment. That it's the intersection of talking about life and also talking about real estate seems to be hitting home with some folks, and just the interconnectedness of all of it. And so, I think they like our flow. I think they like our exchange. They end up learning something too, which is a nice little bonus while you're enjoying yourself. So if you can always learn something through entertainment, I think that is the secret sauce. So I think we're getting there. We just need more listeners. Tell your friends.
Tell everyone you know. Someone's going to take some good advice from us.
Absolutely.
I want to talk today about trade-offs, about giving to get. Let's talk about first in real estate. We'll expand it from there. Real estate, I wrote this example down just as like shorthand for me to know what we're talking about. I want a huge backyard, but I'm also allergic to grass. Like at some point, you've got to make a decision. Like, you want the big backyard, or how long is it going to be before you get tired of taking these pills to not itch all the time? How long is it before you start regretting the decision you made in the past? And so I think that's interesting to think about in real estate. So when you're dealing with people looking at homes in particular, they come to you, here's the things I need to have in my home. Is the first, because you're experienced enough to say, great, I love your list. Let's go through it and like really kind of break it down thing by thing. Because you don't tell them this list is bad. You just show them the places where you may not be able to accommodate both these wishes at once.
Okay. So I think number one, people have a lot of high expectations about whatever price point they're in, what that can include. And the lower the price point, people's expectations are a little bit different than what they will see in this market, right? And so managing people's expectations, I'm a realtor that works off of needs first. So if you need this is what we're focused on. If you want this, that's going to be on the lower end of my priority. And my job is to focus on your needs and then get you as much wants as possible. And then I also feel it's also my job to question you to see if this is what you need. Like if you are a single person, you say, I need 3 bedrooms. I'm going to ask you, what are you doing with the other 2 bedrooms? And depending on what your answer is, it doesn't matter if it makes sense to me, but I need it to make sense to you. So if it's, I'm a single person, I had this scenario with a client. Single guy, he grew up in a home. It wasn't from Atlanta. So he grew up in a home in another state, right? And he said, his first home, I need a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, hardwood floors throughout, 2-car garage, blah, blah, blah. But his price point was around like $250. 260. And so I was like, in the city, close to everything. And I was like, oh, that's cute. And I let people talk and I let people tell me all the things that they want to hear or they want to say to me. And then I give you a dose of reality as to what that means. So when you tell me what you want and need initially, based on those criteria and based on that price point, I'm going to put it into the listing system and I'm going to see what it spits out. And then I'm going to show you what it spits out. So, hey, you might have wanted to be in Midtown or Old Fourth Ward, but at this particular price point for everything that you're asking, you're more so in Douglasville or Fairburn. Do you want to be in Douglasville or Fairburn? Then that becomes, I don't want to be that far. Okay, so now we have to start figuring out what is really important to you. So I think as long as you're dealing with what's most important first, I have to remind you that you said that this is most important to you. And then I have to decide based on your actions and your words, if what you said was important to you is actually important. That makes sense? I think we have a little bit of a delay. Hello? I don't know what happened.
There we go. I think we're back. Weather's been spotty here in Atlanta. The weather's been weird, and so it's been knocking us down a little bit. We'll see how stable this is going to be going on.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Were you able to hear any of
this? No big deal. Yeah, no, it's a great example. You've given it in the class before about the gentleman who wanted to buy a certain price point, wanted all these things because of what he'd seen in his past or what he grew up with. And I think that's always so sensitive and real because you're dealing with people's like psyches and like how you got to the place you were at. With me, the give and take is debt to income. Either make more money or have less debt. Like it's a very clean transactional. Like here, the numbers. I can't massage the numbers. I can't change the numbers. Just the numbers as they've been presented to us. And so for me, it is. It's an easier question to have. When I think about it for your job and for like in life, there aren't necessarily compromises every time, but there's always going to be a trade-off. One of the examples I give is people. So before I did any of this stuff, I was a sports agent. I was an NFL agent, and I have, certain highfalutin friends who are like, oh, those meathead football players. I said, well, okay, maybe they're meatheads. Speaking as a former meathead, I can't tell you they're not, but what I can tell you is that at some point in their lives, they were told that the majority of their value was to be exercised on a football field. And so that they reacted intelligently and logically to being told that's where their value is. That's where they put their energy. So if you told these same kids that you're a math prodigy, maybe they go high-level calculus in high school. But you told them you're good at X, Y, and Z. They focus their energies there to the detriment of something else. You can't go to class. You can't go to that lab if it's during practice. It's just some things don't work that way. Right. So it's a different kind of intelligence, a different kind of and I love that look at that, because it's not better or worse. It's what do you truly value? What's going to be important for you right now? How far is that going to carry you going forward? Like, is it going to be an answer? You said something to me once. We were talking about something like this, that eventually, if you give up too much, if you acquiesce too much, if you make too many, if you hate something so much, but you just say, I'll deal with it for live here, eventually that's going to turn into real resentment for the whole situation.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time, right? So I learned a long time ago to tell my clients not to talk themselves into anything. It works for you or it doesn't work for you. And you have to be honest about that. And I think that as you are a numbers person, right? So either the numbers work or the numbers don't work.
Right.
From my end, it's a matter of managing expectations. Like, what are you going to see out in this particular market based on your price point, based on not just your price point, but also based on, once we start putting, all of these different details in there that are important to you, then the number whittles down pretty fast. So then, while you were in Zillow thinking that you had 30 to 50 homes that were your option, there's actually only like 5 to 7 homes. And if it's not narrowed down to 5 to 7 homes, then the person you are working with is not asking the right questions. Because I promise you that once you put in most of your specifics or all of your specifics, then you're going to see how little is available based on your specific criteria of what you need. And then from there, it's about just making the best decision and which one is the best move for you. But I mean, we deal with that, managing expectations and ranking importance of things all the time, right? Like, you're married and you decide what you are willing to have a discussion about and fight over, and what you're willing to just kind of let go and let slide, right? And then from my end, because I'm newly dating someone and we're only about 6 months in, just even getting back out there in the real world and dating, I had to manage my own expectations of what is out there and what are trade-offs that I'm willing to do, which is different at 47 now than it was at 30 or 35, and what you can deal with and what you can live with and what you can absolutely not live with. And it takes a lot of honesty with yourself or whoever you're helping to make decisions with about how this works, or if you're willing to step out of your box as well, because the person I'm dating is completely different box than people that I've dated in the past. It doesn't make any sense on paper. It doesn't really make any sense to me. We laugh about it all the time because I don't make any sense to her. Like, people are like, how the hell did this happen? Because we both chose to step outside of our box, and so it would have never happened. And so some of it is sticking to your guns and this is what I want and this is what I need. And sometimes it's like, I've been doing the same thing for a long time now and shit ain't working. So it might be time for me to try something different, date something different, look at a different style of house. I might have grew up in a ranch, but maybe a townhome might be my lifestyle right now. And one of the things I realized, and you and I have talked about this, when people are buying homes now, especially your first time home and things like that, you don't realize that the home that you grew up in was your parents' last home, right? It wasn't their first home. They were living in a studio apartment or a small rundown place, or maybe not rundown, but it wasn't the big, large, elaborate, or whatever that is now. They had to work up to that. You're seeing the end result of all of their hard work, and they work their tails off to get you into a space where you can enjoy the things that they built for you. And now it's your job to build something for yourself. So unless you got a really nice nest egg, or you are trusted, or someone's giving you a 20% down deposit, or you just have had made incredible investments and now you can go and do whatever the hell you want, you have to start too from somewhere. And you're not going to get everything that you want. And that needs to be okay with you. because there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of spoiled entitlement out there that I have to get everything that I want based on my money, as if your money isn't the same as someone else trying to spend that money too. I promise you that $400,000 home or that 250 home doesn't work for you. It's going to work for someone else. They're not just waiting for your money. All money is possession, but money is money at the end of the day, and they're going to take somebody's money. They're not waiting on just your money, and you need to understand as well.
That's been something I had to learn, or had to constantly teach some clients, because you have clients who are saying, who will I'll watch them lose 2 or 3 homes, and I'm like, hey, here's what I would suggest. Here's how I would approach it. Here's how we can make sure it doesn't happen again. To the point where one of my cornerstones of my sales pitch now is, the reason I like to send people through full underwriting is because I don't want you to have the experience losing a house. I don't want you to have that feeling. I don't want you to have to go through that and have to learn these lessons the hard way. I want you to take advantage of my experience to say, hey, let's do these things. Let's set this up right so that I can send LaCressa or whoever your agent is with the best negotiating power possible the first time up. I don't want you to say, oh, and by the 3rd home, you're now comparing it to the 2 you may have lost, and now you're mentally not in the same place. And so it's super imperative that you realize that, we don't just say these things for fun. We don't say them for our health. We say them because we know what we're talking about. And we know what we're talking about because we've done this for a while. We're experienced. We're veterans. And it's important that we're not telling you these things in a way to stop you from you do what you want to do. We're trying to make it happen as smoothly, quickly, and easily as possible. That's the entire point.
Oh, absolutely. And also, number one, we also have to protect you from yourselves. As much as, do you hear the dog in the background? There's someone in the office. Dog.
I was like, my dog's downstairs. He's asleep on the couch.
Someone's in the office and with their dog, and their dog is there's a poodle barking in the background. No, but you have to. You're making a big decision. There are some trade-offs with any big decision that you make, right? Like you're talking about when you were an agent, they have to decide, do I want to go with team A and get this, or do I want to go with team B? Team A might get me the salary that I want, but it's also across the country from my family and my support and the people who have been supporting me that I want at my games, and I want there every single weekend, and I can't afford, and nor they can afford, to travel back and forth across country to come and attend my games and to be there to support me. So do I take the big salary and lose out on my family connection? Or do I take a smaller salary and be closer to home and keep that family connection? There's always going to be a trade-off in some way. And so what is the trade-off for you? How do you get the most of what you want and need, but you're never going to get everything? Never. You're never going to get everything. I would love to get everything, but also at the same time, probably not, because I think sometimes the things that I think that I want, I don't really want that once it comes to it, and that's a harsh reality too. I thought I wanted this person with this personality and this type of style and this type of this. And by the way, I've gotten it. And then I was like, this is trash. Like, this is not what I wanted. And I realized that the facade didn't matter. I needed someone who could be a little bit more vulnerable. I needed someone who could be a little bit more open. I needed someone who was willing to grow and be their best self and not be a been there, done that. I've done everything. I've learned all my lessons, right? Even if the package looked freaking amazing and the extracurricular activities were wonderful, at the end of the day, it wasn't sustainable for me because it was still a little bit surface.
I think that's something that you really brought out when you talked about asking deeper questions, even on the real estate side. Like, it's like, hey, these are things I think I want, but in relationships, we're able to go through it and learn that that's not what I really want. That's not what I want. You learn things like even just living your life, like something I learned at an early age that I watch like society kind of learning now. Money does not buy happiness. Exactly. It can buy a lot of things. It can buy jet skis that make my wife likes to say you're always going to be smiling on the jet ski. But like, it's still fun to fall off. Like, I don't know, jet skis are fun. But there's always going to be, you're not going to fill the hole, like you said, the deeper questions, the ones that you need to ask. So my wife and I engage in every married couple's favorite thing in the world to do, which is watch reality shows about relationships to feel superior. And
Oh,
so,
how's that
yeah,
going?
it works beautifully. Oh,
Oh,
couldn't be
perfect.
happier with it.
You guys are
Recommend
great.
it to any good couple out there.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
in a
yeah.
bad place, watch some reality TV with your spouse. You guys will feel better about your stuff immediately. But one of the ones we love is Love is Blind. They do this thing where it's behind the screen. It doesn't matter. But it was really funny to watch these people get to the altar and be like, well, we've never really talked about where we stood on like this important social issues. And I'm like, what conversations y'all be having? Like, hold on now. Like, what did y'all talk? And I see this in real life where I have a friend be like, I never saw this side of her before we got married. I'm like, what did y'all talk about? What did
Did you
y'all
not?
just go to the movies a bunch? And then be like, well, that was long enough. Let's get hitched. Like, I don't understand it.
I think some people don't want to know, right? They're afraid of what they might find out. Like, you know how when you have a crush on someone for so long and like you've seen them from a distance and you've had all of these ideas about what the conversation was going to be like. And when I just meet this person, it's going to be kismet and we're just going to meld. And then they open their mouth and you're just like,
Someone once told me the best cure for any crush is to meet the person.
And you're so disappointed. And I'm like, you should have never opened.
The crush opens their mouth. You meet them for real. Oh no, this can't be what it is. And that's a lot of the truth, man. That's the thing is that in relationships you slowly like accumulate knowledge. You're like, okay, this is what I like. I don't like that. That's a sign of something I'm not going to like later. That's okay. You sure do call your mama a lot. All right, that's a whole other thing. Okay, we'll figure that out. But it's these things that like we're able to internalize and kind of grow. But I think that no one really talks about it. No one really talks about like the journey to find, like you said, at your age, finding someone who's atypical for what you've normally looked for.
Mm-hmm.
That's because you learned, like, and you grew and you changed and your outlook evolved and you were able to say, oh, this thing that looks everything that glitters is not gold. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the thing that does. I hate that I'm getting so old because I'm thinking things like youth is wasted on the young. Like I'm thinking all those cliches.
Oh my God, I'm that way now. I'm totally like youth is wasted on the young. As far as the energy is concerned, right? I want young energy, but I want the same wisdom and things that I want to keep that. I just want to siphon their energy out of them.
But that's the trade-off too. We gave up our energy and we got this wisdom. Like it took that trade-off because when you're moving in your 20s, you don't have time for wisdom. You've got to get the next thing you're chasing, you're running, you're whatever's happening. And then by the time you're a little bit older, you're like, wow, if I'd only known then what I know now.
No, so I always, we talk about therapy stuff all the time, right? Like that's just what you and I talk about, or we're always in some type of therapy session. So one of the things that I love about my therapist, shout out to Cheryl, is that from a long time ago, it was, this is kind of the pull of, have you ever seen Under the Tuscan Sun?
I have not.
Okay. Please watch that movie. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, please watch that movie because it's a really beautiful example of how the universe works or how God works. I say God, some people say universe, and that I believe that God gives you everything that you want. It just may not come in the package that you thought it was going to come in, right? It might not be your tall, dark, and handsome or tall, boobed, blonde, or whatever that is for you, right? And so from the beginning, when Cheryl and I were talking and we were talking about managing expectations about life and about things that you want, a lot of times people miss the blessing because they're so focused on what it's supposed to look like. They have decided in their head that it has to look like this, present like this, be this tall, be this size, be this whatever, right? And she's like, let go of the form and focus on the feeling. So that was one of my biggest lessons, right? When it came to when I started dating again, and particularly dating this person, I let go of the form and focus on the feeling. Because when we first met and I first met her, I was like, this is interesting and I'm curious. And at the same time, this doesn't make any sense. Right. And if I focused on the not making sense part versus the curiosity part, I would have never gotten to the feeling and where we are now, because I would have been like, that's not my type. That's not my type this way. Yeah. That's not my type that way. That's my whatever. And so focusing on the feeling, which is going back to last episode, that's why I have people think about sleep on their decision before they decide to move forward, because then it's allowing you to focus on the feeling of the space, not the aesthetics of this place. Do you feel like this place could be a home for you? Doesn't matter if it's a home for you for 2 years, 5 years, or 15 years. Do you feel that this could be a space for you? Not what it looks like, because I can show you a bunch of things that look the same.
Yeah.
But the energy is going to feel different when you walk into that space. Everything is different. So that's why I'm a big believer in focus on the feeling. Because when you focus on the form, a lot of times you might miss the blessing, and it might take a while for it to come back again.
That's so important because, again, like you said, and this isn't tying to trade-offs, but it does tie into stacking of priorities. What you value becomes different.
Right.
Going back to that terrible reality show, Love is Blind, you watch these women who said that they believed in certain things about the world, about their worldviews, and they would choose these men who espoused very different beliefs. And I'm over here like, so who's going to ask the question that ends all this? And no one asked the question. And I'm like, oh, you're all dummies. The question
comes up,
you're all dummies.
It's the family. The family's like, okay, this is carrying off, right? Because they're already caught off guard with the fact that y'all got engaged after a week or 2 weeks of being in a pod and not seeing each other. Fine. Let's go past the physical, right?
Past that, yeah.
Focusing on the feeling, not on the physical. So that concept, freaking brilliant. But while you're in there, this is the time to have these, because you're excited about possibly getting married to someone, but you don't want to ask the tough questions. You find out once you're engaged that they're unemployed. You find out once that you are engaged that they have $100,000 worth of debt and they're living in their parents' basement, but they came on a reality TV show. You find out at the, right when your parents and family are meeting. There was a great example of that young lady there, that their family was like, boo, what are you doing? Like, you guys don't line up value-wise. And she's trying to convince herself while trying to convince her family that their values lined up. Aesthetically, they lined up. They look good together. They can
That's what's weird about the show. It's a show where you don't see anyone, but everyone's conventionally attractive. You're like, wait a second. You know what I
mean? They can banter with the best of them. They can have some cocktails. They probably have really great, sex or whatever. But at the end of the day, all that shit fades. And then it's about, what do you stand up for? What do you believe in? And can we really rock long term based on shared values, or at least mutual respect of each other's values, right? Because you don't have to share the same value. There are Catholics and Jewish people who marry each other, and those are totally two different religious paradigms. But you have to have respect for the other one in order to be able to coincide together. You can't just make someone believe what you believe and think that eventually over time that it's not going to come up. It's going to come up. And then in your house choosing with your partner, right? You got to both be on board together, because somebody's going to be pissed off in the end if she got everything she want or he got everything he want, and now just have to live with it, and now just have to deal with it. That's a resentment that's building up there. And it's hard to come back when you either resent the space, or you resent the decision that you made, or you look at that partner and you're just like, you talked me into this. I can tell you right now, the first house that I bought, financial decision, best decision I ever made in my life. Did I want that house? Hell no. Did I buy that house to shut my ex-husband up? Absolutely. And he wasn't even my husband yet. But I was like, I'm tired of you talking about this. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I think having to deal with it, because I resented my decision at the end of the day. And I fully resented his ass, for sure.
I think being able to go into compromising situations, not compromising situations, go into places where there's going to be an adjustment. If you can be honest with yourself up front and be truly accepting of it, that's going to, the way you go into it's going to change it. So I don't know if I've talked about this on here. You know this story. When I met Susan, we got together, she ended up getting a job in Philadelphia. I had just started a job here in Atlanta with Wells Fargo. And the question became, are you going to go with this girl you just been dating for 6 months to a city you openly hate? If you're listening to this in Philadelphia, I love you. I don't like your city. It is what it is. Great food, fantastic food. The rest of it, fantastic food. And so, like, part of her concern about asking me to go, or part of my concern with going, was, I'm leaving my friends, I'm leaving my family, I'm leaving this job I just started. What if I really go to hate your ass over this? And I vocalized that. Like we both came into our relationship out of bad relationships. So it was like two wounded puppies. Like, look, let's just be very honest and open and forthright, and like we just don't want to get burned again. And so it was again, timing is everything. But yeah, we were able to address that up front, and for 2 years it wasn't an issue. And she'd have moments where she's like, "I'm afraid you're going to hate me because we moved here." I had stuff going on back in Atlanta, and she was terrified that whatever was going to be happening back in Atlanta, she'd taken me away from it. And I was like, there's part of you that's like, you could lean into that, which is crazy. Like, she's always like, you handle that so well. I'm like, there's no way I was going to be like, you're right. I do resent you like that, because I had made the decision with the full knowledge of what I was doing. Like, I was fully invested. I had thought it through, and she didn't snowblind me. She didn't lead me astray. It was two adults having a conversation. I say adults. I was like 29. Like, I feel like I was a child, but like,
you
should
have been an adult. But yes, at 29.
Yeah, I should have been an adult. I was a child.
No, it puts a lot of pressure on your relationship as well, right?
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, this person has moved here based on me and what I want and need. And now I need to make sure that this still works for them, even though they made that decision. Because everybody makes a decision, regardless of how they came to the decision. You've made a decision. Did you make a full decision based off of all of the factors that could go into it? Most of the time, people don't. Right. And then you deal with the fallout later. And that's where it is. I've never moved for anyone. I can tell you right now, I didn't date anybody that lived outside the city, and I wasn't open to it. I think there was some old people dating show on something, and they're like, you went to this older man. Do you remember this? They went to this, and they're like, so what did you think of, Stacy or whatever? Yeah. They're like, he's like, she lives in Atlanta. And they're like, so you're going to give up the possibility of love because she lives in the city of Atlanta. He goes, I ain't dealing with Atlanta traffic.
Every Atlanta person was like, get it.
I get it. And I was watching it too. And I was like, I get it. I remember this.
Like, if I live in Stone Mountain and you live in Cobb County, it's a long distance relationship.
No, I'm not doing
it. Relationship.
Oh my God. I remember there's this one guy who like wanted to like hang out with me, get to know me or whatever. And he was bragging about his house. And he's like, I live in this $500,000 house. Oh my God, this might offend some people, but I live in this $500,000 house in Fairburn. And I was like, it's Fairburn. So, okay. Like good for y'all. But I don't want to drive out there. I don't even know if I would even if I liked you enough, I would be annoyed every time I drive out there.
Every time.
You're going to hear it every time I drive out there. Because my friends who live in Kennesaw that I see a couple times a year, I tell them every time I drive out there, I love you enough to drive out here. It took me an hour, no traffic to get up here. Right. I can only stay for a few hours because then I have to get back and possibly deal with an hour and a half traffic to go back into the city. No, I'm not doing this. I love y'all. Thank you for all of the lovely invites. You get me twice a year. You got two. Pick the two. Kid's birthday, anniversary, barbecue. I don't know what it's going to be, but you got me 2 times because I don't like driving like that. And that is a deal breaker for me. When I was on dating apps, it was like, what is your mile radius? 10. My mile radius is 10. Anything over 10, nah. You're going to have to live in town.
It's not that serious.
This is a one-way in direction here because, sweetie, I ain't going out there. I'm not. And that was my deal breaker. And I know it could be lame and it sounds silly to some people, but that was my thing. I'm an in-town girl. The things I like to do, the places I like to eat, the shows I like to go to, the festivals I like to go to are in town, which is why all of y'all come in town and work in town. Why am I driving out there? Me and my sweetie are talking about that right now, like future plans. And I was like, you can live wherever you want. I'm going to be right here. You might see me on the weekend, but Monday through Friday, boo, you ain't going to see me because I'm going to be right here. So everybody has their trade-offs.
Everyone's got their trade-offs. That's all very funny. But as you were talking about the things and the resentments that can boil over, it's very funny. Like anytime we have like a semi-serious fight, like not even a serious fight, if we have a joking fight now, so I'm like, she'll be like, well, I carried our son for 9 months. I'm like, I moved to Philadelphia. I've got this ultimate trump card. Like it's just like I will end the argument if I want to. Like I moved to a city I hate for your ass. Don't try me. But my favorite story from the Philadelphia years, and she's listening to these now. She's let me know she listens.
So how funny! Wait, what does she think, by the way?
She says that, so I've done, behind the curtain, I've been podcasting for over a decade now. I've been across the country, do them live. I've got shows that I run networks. She says that it's very interesting to hear me talk about something that's not sports or comic books.
Ah, okay.
And that this is the closest to the version of me that she gets.
Oh wow!
She loves this. She loves you, by the way. She adores you. She thinks you're fantastic. But she's like,
nice.
This is the closest to the version of at home Daniel that I get.
Ah, that's so interesting. Because I see that your folks and stuff are always liking.
Yeah, they're very
mom and your dad, which is really sweet, by the way. And I always am interested in how they get to see you in this lane as well. Like, what's that like for them?
It's interesting because the last live show we did was in DC. God, maybe 7 or 8 years ago now. And my parents flew up we were living in Philly. My parents flew up from Atlanta for the show. And it was interesting to watch them interact with people who supporters, listeners, fans, whatever. People who oh, you're part of my everyday. Oh, listen, I can't wait for the podcast to drop. We were in the hotel, little commissary area in DC, and I was talking to my mom, talking to Susan, we're getting breakfast. And some guy walked up to me and said, "Hey, are you D-Palm?" And I was like, because I wasn't doing video podcast. I was like, "Oh, I can just be here." He's like, "I recognized your voice. I'm coming to the show tonight. Can't wait." I was like, "Thanks, man." And it was so cool. It was dope because my mother was a lawyer by trade. And so anytime she can hear me talk extemporaneously, she's like, "You should have gone to law school." So the Matthew slowed that down some, but no, it's interesting because these little slivers of ourselves that are digitally captured, they're not all of us, but I like to think, and I think you're the same way, where we carry ourselves in such a way that we're consistent. Like you may say, "Oh, I've seen you do sports stuff," and you talk about these things the same way. You may be talking about different things, but the values are all the same. Like one of the examples, I was talking about football earlier. I talked about the different types of intelligence. I tell that story in connection with the idea that players shouldn't be paid in college football. And I tie that to that because if a kid was a math prodigy and he had an internship at Microsoft, he would allowed to get paid to do that. And the counterbalance is this kid who's devoted himself to being the best DB he can prior to recent rulings could not go work a camp and get paid to do that.
Right.
And I always thought that was inequitable and it was a devaluation because we value certain things in different ways. And now that the playing field's changed and now they've got this NIL thing, this is not going to turn into a sports podcast. But when people tell you that college players are getting paid now, they're able to earn independent payment from name, image, and likeness deals by being advertisers for certain things. Meanwhile, the schools are signing billion-dollar television contracts and not paying their actual labor. And that's the point I always come back to because, now I'll tie this up really quickly, for me, it's always about the people. The reason I want to do this podcast and talk about real estate and talk about life and how interconnected it is to, one, make the real estate conversations less foreign. I don't want the idea of real estate to be scary. I want it to feel like something that's already intimately tied to your life because it is. Whether you actively engage with it or not, if you're paying for shelter, which is the number one cost in this country right now, you're paying for shelter. You're paying a mortgage. You may not be paying yours, but you are paying someone's.
Yeah.
And two, I want people to see that you're already doing the things that are going to get you into a home. You're already doing these things in your life. You are consistent in your life. You show up for the people in your life. You show up for work in your life, even when you don't want to be. I had to get my fingerprints done today because they expired because my fingerprints changed, I guess. I don't know. I'm not in charge of banking. I have to get my fingerprints done every 3 years, whatever. But I was talking to the young lady who ran the little shop, and we were talking about how she's like, "Oh, I've been renting for X number of years. How long have you owned this little company?" "Well, I've owned it for 7 to 8 years. "Well, you're showing up, you're doing your job. Let's talk about that." And we started talking, and she didn't know that you could do a bank statement loan. She didn't know about the different avenues to finding ways into housing. And so that's why, for me, I try to bring the most of myself to this podcast because I want everyone to see that we've been doing this a while, but we're also normal ass people. We're also people who just found a thing that we think can help people. And the more people we can get in front of to let them help themselves, the better it is for everyone.
You know what I find, and I've been thinking about this lately because I've been, slinging houses for 20 years now, or to be 20 years in June. And I still have obviously a passion for real estate, and I love talking about it, and I love educating people, but I'm trying to figure out where my new lane is in real estate. And I realize that for me, it's always been education, right?
Yeah.
For you, it's always been education. You educate people on the numbers. I educate people on the process. I educate people on trusting themselves about the process and the decisions that they're making, and we both are talking to them about their readiness, right? Like, you are more ready than what you actually are. So it's kind of like that outside in perspective of, I hear this is what you say, you present all of these different things. From my perspective, you are closer than what you actually think you are. And we create these stories in our head based on tales that we've learned. The internet's out there has all kinds of stories via Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and people talk about their nightmares, or they only see the glamorous side of things. And I think HGTV has kind of worked people's nerves and education about what is possible out there. I would love a realistic home shopping, home buying show. Do you know what I mean?
Mix in one lender to like just run their numbers, and like, let's take, like, I want to see the real, like, and it's like a doctor watching House. That's bad medicine. I watch those shows like, that's bad. Like, I would never do this.
Right. And then, or you hear people's stories and you're like, I don't know if you got the best representation. Right. But we can't always say that. Also, I feel like this becomes a platform to give you the most power and knowledge in knowing that it's not that hard. It's complicated and not complicated. It doesn't have to be that complicated. If you have the right guide and if you have the right team around you, then it's not going to be complicated. It's going to be a little stressful. It might be a little bit harder than you expected, but it doesn't have to be that complicated if someone's able to break it down for you, or if you have the support that you need. And that's in real estate, and that's in relationships, right? Like, when I go to weddings, I think that for me, my personal perspective is like, not everybody gets to be invited to that special day. And I understand there are relationships and it's a cultural thing to, have business colleagues and different things like that. I want for you and for me to surround myself by people who are going to support us, not just be there for a big day. I want the people who are going to pray for us. I want the people who are going to uplift us as a couple. I want people who are going to be like, dude, that wasn't great what you did to your partner. And I'm here to say you can do things a little bit better, and to provide wisdom and to provide advice, because I've been with my partner for 15 years. Michelle Obama's great about that. She's like, I didn't like Barack for 6 years. Like, for 6 years, I couldn't stand him. He couldn't stand me, but we were in this together and we knew what we wanted long term. You have to surround yourself by people who understand your value, understand your values in general, and are truly able to support you and help you make those great decisions, or just be there while you're making decisions. And I think that the lack of real support is what makes people make it so scary and crazy.
100%. But hey, another episode in the books. Episode 7's behind us now. LaCressa, tell everyone they can find you. I know you're a big TikTok star now as well, so tell everyone they can find you there too.
Not really. I'm not. Annie is, because she's the producer of it. So Annie is the big TikTok star. So it's just my face on there sometimes. I'm at KW in town, LaCressa Morrow. You can Google my name. LAC sells ATL. And I'm available. I'm around. You can pick my brain. You can send this to your friends and family and colleagues and strangers, and we're here to help.
Friends, family, colleagues, and even your enemies. Anyone you know, send us out. Send them our way. Daniel Palmer, DanielPalmerMortgages.com. Follow me on all the social medias at dpalm66. Make sure when you've done this, when you followed us, you followed the show, you followed LaCressa, make sure you share and subscribe this with people so that they know where to get the best knowledge they can gain on life, love, and real estate. See you guys next week or next 2 weeks. Get the schedule, my brain.
I know. Everything is running together these days. I think things are moving fast and slow at the same time. It's hard to keep up.
Well said. See you guys later.
Bye.